Hey guys, Fletch Football Observer here, and today's video is going to be a Premier League review show reviewing Game 22 of the 2019-2020 season. This round of fixtures produced plenty of goals and also some big results that had some big implications at the top and of the bottom of the table. So without further ado, let's get into the talking points and the results. We're going to begin with the Premier League leaders Liverpool, who kept both their unbeaten season and their lead at the top of the table intact following a 1-0 victory over Tottenham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The only goal of the game came in the first half when Tottenham failed to deal with a Reds attack that ended when the ball broke to Roberto Firmino in the penalty area, and after shifting the ball onto his left foot, he lashed home a goal which proved to be the difference maker in the game. So, all in all, another win for Liverpool and another clean sheet for the Reds. This team have become a machine and they go marching onwards, dispatching teams at will. It wasn't the best of performances from them, in all honesty, but once again, despite not being 100%, they managed to get the job done. They'll be looking to continue their push towards the Premier League title next week when they take on fierce rivals Manchester United at Anfield. As for Spurs, they may feel a bit annoyed at the way the goal came about from the throw-in in the build-up to it, which probably should have been theirs in all honesty, but from there the defending was awful, and ultimately that and some really bad finishing caused their defeat in this game. They'll be looking to bounce back next week when they take on Watford in Saturday's lunchtime fixture. Next we come to Friday night's game, where late VAR drama occurred as it helped Sheffield United to another victory at Bramall Lane. The two real incidents of note both occurred in the second half. The first was the Blades breaking the deadlock when John Fletch capitalised on a goalkeeping error by David Martin to tee up Ollie McBurney to score the game's only goal. And the second incident happened right in the dying embers of the game, where West Ham thought they had equalised through Robert Snodgrass. However, VAR interfered and ruled the goal out after it was revealed the ball had struck Declan Rice's hand in the build-up to the goal, as the technology came to the Blades' rescue and ensured that they move up to 6th in the table. It's a big result this for Sheffield United. They did get a little fortunate as the handball rule is, in my opinion, extremely harsh, but at least it is consistent and has been used consistently all season, so I will give it credit there. But it is another 3 points and a clean sheet for the Blades that they have accumulated. As for West Ham, it wasn't their best performance and they would have been satisfied with a draw in all honesty. However, it wasn't to be thanks to VAR. Sheffield United travelled to London to take on Arsenal next Saturday, whilst West Ham host Everton on the same day at the same time. For our next game, we're jumping to Sunday afternoon's encounter that saw Manchester City arrive at Villa Park and deliver an absolute thumping to Aston Villa following a 6-1 victory for Pep Guardiola's side, in which Sergio Aguero scored a hat-trick. City opened the scoring on 18 minutes and 10 minutes later were 3-0 up. Riyad Mahrez scored the opening goal and got his second of the afternoon minutes later before Aguero opened his account for the afternoon as well. On the stroke of half-time, Gabriel Jesus scored City's 4th goal after Kevin De Bruyne's superb cross, before Aguero completed his hat-trick in the second half, scoring City's 5th and 6th goal. With the last kick of the game though, Villa did manage to spoil City's chances of keeping a clean sheet as they managed to gain a late consolation goal from the penalty spot after Ilkay Gundogan was judged to have fouled Trezeguet in the penalty area and Anwar El Ghazi converted to the spot kick. But ultimately, this wasn't much of a contest in all honesty. It was a comfortable and professional performance and victory by Manchester City here. The only downside for them would be to have not recorded a clean sheet on top of that, but having gained the 3 points and leapfrogged Leicester into second, it won't be something that they'll dwell on for too long. Also, Aguero back in form, back among the goals, and his goals today have taken him to a new record in the Premier League because he is now the Premier League's highest scoring foreign player, so congratulations to him for that. City will look to continue this kind of dominance and form when they clash with Crystal Palace on Saturday. And as for Villa, well, ultimately it was a bad day at the office all round. They didn't really turn up or put up much of a challenge in all honesty. And with their current list of injuries and them dropping into the relegation zone, things don't look good right now for them and their supporters. They'll want to move on quickly from this and on to their next game, which is against Brighton on Saturday afternoon. Next on the list, we come to the 1-1 draw that played out at Selhurst Park between Crystal Palace and Arsenal. Arsenal took the lead in the first half when a nice flowing move ended with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang finding the back of the net. But in the second half, Palace were back on level terms when Jordan Ayew's deflected strike beat Bernd Leno in the Arsenal goal. Not long after, Arsenal went down to 10 men when Aubameyang's late challenge on Max Meyer was reviewed by VAR, and despite the on-field referee initially giving the striker a yellow card, the VAR overturned the decision to instead hand the Gunners' talisman a red card instead. Pepe went on to hit the post for the Gunners late on, but despite that effort, neither side could really find that winning goal, so had to settle for a point apiece. Upon reflection, with the amount of injuries Palace have encountered recently and with the way that the game went for Arsenal, losing control over a little bit of the game towards the end and in the second half, and then of course the red card that followed, a point for both sides is fair upon reflection, I think, and something that both can build on. For Palace, it's a good point that they'll have to look to add on to in their next game, which is again a tough ask as they have to take on Manchester City. But as for Arsenal, positives in terms of this was a draw and not a loss, because I do feel that if Unai Emery was still in charge here, this would have been the type of game that they would have lost in the past. So you can definitely see this as a bit of progress, and of course it does depend on which way you look at it. But they'll want to get back to winning ways anyway regardless, but they'll have a tough task themselves when they take on Sheffield United in their next game. Wolves and Newcastle are our next game, as both sides managed to cancel each other out at Molineux to share the spoils following a 1-1 draw on Saturday. Only 7 minutes were on the clock when Newcastle made the breakthrough through Miguel Almiron, who scored a very well taken goal. However, the Magpies' lead didn't last too long, as on the quarter-hour mark, Wolves equalised. Leander Dendoncker scored the goal after meeting João Moutinho's corner, and he made no mistake in finding the back of the net. Martin Dubravka in the Magpies' goal was on hand to brilliantly deny both Raul Jimenez and Pedro Neto, whilst Newcastle had more injury concerns than chances in this game, but will certainly take the point as a good result. A point for both sides seems like a point gain for Newcastle and 2 points drop for Wolves. The home side had the better of the chances but were denied by either poor finishing or a great goalkeeping performance. Wolves will look to put this 3-game winless run behind them when they take on Southampton on Saturday. And as for Newcastle, the injury list just continues to grow for them. They add another couple of players on there as well, and their squad is slowly becoming more and more stretched by the game, it seems. So we'll probably be the happier of the two sides given this result. The Magpies entertain Chelsea in Saturday's evening fixture for their next game. Our next game saw Chelsea beat Burnley 3-0 at Stamford Bridge to keep a hold of their grip on top 4. Burnley thought they'd open the scoring early in the first half when Jeff Hendrick headed home. However, the goal was chalked off after it was revealed that Ben Mee was stood in an offside position during the build-up to that goal. From there though, Chelsea took over and did go on to add insult to injury for the Clarets when it was them who took the lead through Jorginho, who scored from the penalty spot after Matt Lowton had fouled Willian in the penalty area. Tammy Abraham went on to double the Blues' lead before Callum Hudson-Odoi scored his first Premier League goal as Chelsea saw the game out in comfortable and convincing fashion. A great victory for Chelsea and a great performance to boot, with a clean sheet being the icing on the cake. It was a very good afternoon for Chelsea and Frank Lampard, who maintained their hold of a top 4 spot for now. They can now look ahead to facing Newcastle next weekend. But as for Burnley, they are now on a 4-game losing streak, which is definitely cause for concern, particularly given how tight the Premier League is in and around the relegation zone. They'll be looking to get back to winning ways next week, but will have a tough task on their hands when they entertain Leicester at Turf Moor. Our next game saw Everton pick up their first victory of the new year following a 1-0 victory over Brighton at Goodison Park. The only goal of the game came in the first half and was scored by Richarlison, controlling Lucas Digne's cross before turning and firing into the corner. A goal which proved to be the difference maker between the two sides and gained Everton 3 more points, with the Toffees currently occupying 11th spot. Good win for Everton all round. They had the better of the chances, but in the end it took one very well taken goal by Richarlison to break the deadlock and ultimately seal the victory for them. The Toffees will be looking to make it back-to-back wins when they take on West Ham next weekend. As for Brighton, they did scare Everton on a couple of occasions, but in the end, nothing really clear-cut or not really being clinical enough let them down. They'll be looking to bounce back next week when they take on struggling Aston Villa. Our next game saw Watford come out convincing and comfortable winners in a bottom-of-the-table clash at the Vitality Stadium against fellow relegation candidates Bournemouth on Sunday afternoon. Watford opened the scoring in the first half after they capitalised on a defensive error, and the Hornets punished the Cherries with Abdoulaye Doucouré firing home. In the second half, the Hornets doubled their lead when Troy Deeney hammered into the back of the net from close range, before Roberto Pereira, on from the substitutes bench, volleyed home Watford's third in injury time. It was a result that sees Watford escape the relegation zone, whilst Bournemouth sink even deeper into it. A poor result for Eddie Howe's side. It's been a real doom and gloom spell for them these past couple of months. Injuries have piled up to key players, they're not picking up much luck in terms of results, and relegation is looking like an increasing possibility by the game. They certainly need to start picking up points beginning next week when they take on another bottom of the table clash, that is, against Norwich, in what is of course now a must-win game for both sides. As for Watford themselves, things have really taken off for them already under new manager Nigel Pearson. They're out of the bottom 3 and will look to keep it that way going forward. It's quite amazing how quickly he's managed to turn around the fortunes of this club, and will it continue is the question. Will it continue next week with the Hornets taking on Tottenham on Saturday? Only time will tell. In our penultimate game on this list, Manchester United heaped more misery onto Norwich thanks to a 4-0 victory over the Canaries at Old Trafford. Just under half an hour was on the clock when the Red Devils took the lead through Marcus Rashford, and shortly after the restart, United were rewarded a penalty when Tim Krul brought down Brandon Williams in the penalty area, and from the resulting spot kick, Rashford scored his second of the afternoon. Minutes later, United added a third goal thanks to Anthony Martial's header, and then to round off the performance later on in the half, substitute Mason Greenwood drilled his shot into the corner of the net as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side comfortably secured all 3 points. All in all, a good win for United, but in reality, Norwich were extremely poor and apart from 1 or 2 moments, didn't really lay a glove on United at all. It did seem the kind of game United would drop points in, and history would back that up in the preview, so to have done a professional job here for them anyway is a positive nonetheless. They have an FA Cup replay with Wolves to contend with this week before taking on fierce rivals Liverpool away from home on Sunday. And as for Norwich themselves, an uninspiring and lacklustre performance to have any hope of Premier League survival. They seriously need to start accumulating points, but it's looking like an ever increasing uphill battle from here, particularly if their regular goalscorer Timu Pukki isn't there to help. They will resume their survival bid next week when they take on fellow strugglers Bournemouth. And finally, Danny Ings scored a late winner as Southampton made it 5 games unbeaten with a 2-1 victory over Leicester. The Foxes drew first blood on the quarter-hour mark through Dennis Pratt, but the lead only lasted 5 minutes when the Saints equalised through Stuart Armstrong, whose deflected strike beat Kasper Schmeichel. 10 minutes from time, Southampton found the winner through Danny Ings, who had already hit the woodwork twice in this game. He wasn't going to be denied a third time though, as he proved to be the difference maker, scoring the winning goal and ensuring that Southampton now have a 7-point gap between themselves and the drop zone. A completely different game and different result to the one we saw a few months ago between these two teams, where Leicester were victorious by 9-0. Southampton certainly got some sort of revenge here. All talk of a possible title challenge from Leicester seems to have now died, but that talk did only seem to come mainly by mainstream media, as the Foxes seem to have hit a bit of a mediocre patch in recent weeks. As for Southampton, a great result and another goal by Danny Ings, who has been their saviour this season. It's safe to say the Saints wouldn't be nowhere near where they currently are without his goals, and it does beg the question of will he be in contention for the England squad for the Euros this summer. Back to these two teams though, and Leicester will look to bounce back next week when they travel to Burnley, while Southampton will look to make it 6 games unbeaten when they take on Wolves at St Mary's. And that wraps up this Premier League review show for Game 22 of the 2019-2020 Premier League season. Guys, if you have any thoughts or comments on any of this round's results or big major talking points, then let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch, the Football Observer. This has been another Premier League review show. And I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.